Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Whitney Howard. Whitney Howard is a professional astrologer, and you can find out more about Whitney Howard and her wonderful work at her website, starlandalchemy.com. Welcome, Whitney Howard.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
And you live in my hometown of Savannah, Georgia.
I do. And I work with clients all over the world from Savannah as my home base.
Yeah, so we're both Savannah girls. That's where I grew up. Now, Whitney Howard, what exactly is evolutionary astrology, and how is it different from traditional astrology?
Evolutionary astrology, Catherine, is astrology of the soul, SOUL. And we'll keep coming back to that in our time together today. Traditional astrology looks at who am I? Who am I in 2023? Who are you in 2023? What's your personality like? Who are you dating? Where are you working? But evolutionary astrology takes a much broader view of who you are as a soul that's lived many lifetimes.
All right. Now, you're the professional astrologer. I'm the medical intuitive healer. And we've all heard about astrology. I don't remember all the 12 sun signs, but will you, for our audience, will you go through the 12 individual sun signs and talk about the overarching spiritual lesson for each of the major 12 sun signs?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. And for folks that are listening that know their astrology chart, everyone knows their sun sign based on when they were born. I know you know yours, Catherine. And for people that know their chart, they'll also know their rising sign, which is the sign that was on the eastern horizon at the moment they were born. So the spiritual lesson that I'll go through for each sign is relevant to the sun sign and the rising sign. So let's start with Aries and go all the way through Pisces. Aries is about being bold as an individual and being a courageous leader. So people that are here as Aries sun, Aries rising, they're really learning to express their individuality. Then we go to Taurus, an earth sign, and Taurus is about the illumination of understanding that life is about thriving through the simple pleasures and beauty of nature and being alive. So if you know any Tauruses, they can be really hard workers and they can just have a perspective that life is all about hard work. But what they're here to learn is that life is about our connection to the natural world. It's about our connection to each other, and that thriving has much more to do with being alive than just how much money we make or what we achieve. Then we get to Gemini. Gemini folks are here to learn to align their thoughts with their own higher wisdom. So Geminis can be overthinkers, the overthinkers of the zodiac, because they're very bright. They have lots of ideas. But what they're here to learn in evolutionary astrology is to align their mind and their thoughts with their own intuitive wisdom and their soul's purpose. Cancer people are here to learn about principles of feeling safe and secure within themselves and to offer nurturance not just to others, but to themselves first and foremost. Then we get to the fire sign of Leo, which is about courage and open-heartedness and feeling lovable and therefore being able to love others with an open heart. Virgo is the sign of the healer, and it's about purification. So for Virgo sun or Virgo rising people, they're here to learn that true wellness is the intersection of physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. So Virgo is a rich sign. Libra Libra sun, Libra rising, balance, being in right relationship with other people and with themselves, and often a radical reorientation of their life circumstances to help bring them into greater balance. Scorpio, Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising. Scorpio people are here to learn the spiritual lesson of transforming their shadow, of taking their biggest struggles and creating the essence of their strength from the phoenix rising, the metaphorical phoenix rising associated with Scorpio, making their shadow their strength. From Scorpio, we move to Sagittarius, which is the truth seeker. So Sagittarians are here to learn to come up with their own, align with their own version of the truth, not how they were raised, not how they were conditioned, but what does truth mean to them? And also, one of the lovable features about Sagittarians, they can be very scattered. So they're here to learn to be disciplined through having a single pointed focus in their life. From Sagittarius, we get to Capricorn. Capricorn is another sign of the worker of the zodiac. And if you Google what Capricorn's about, you'll see success and hard work and the boss and the father. And these things are all true. But in evolutionary astrology, Catherine, Capricorn is one of the most spiritual of all the signs. So Capricorns are here to learn that the path of life is actually the goal of life versus the end achievements, which can be a very humbling spiritual lesson for strong Capricorn people that are natural achievers. Then we get into Aquarians. We're meeting during Aquarius season today, and Aquarians are here to move humanity forward. So they are revolutionary, progressive individuals. They stand out from the crowd, and their spiritual lesson is to take what makes them unique and help move this planet forward. I often say that if we didn't have Aquarians, humanity would stay stuck in stasis, but the Aquarians move us forward. And then finally, Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And the spiritual lesson for Pisces sun or Pisces rising individuals is a combination of boundaries and service. And those are two different topics, but they go hand in hand because Pisces are naturally compassionate people, naturally giving people. They feel everything. So they are here to learn how to have healthy boundaries so that they can honor themselves as much as they honor others. And in doing so, they can be of service in a way that really supports others without draining their own life force.
So thank you for that. And so if someone's listening, they would do best if they understood their sun sign and also their ascending sign.
That's right. In evolutionary astrology, one of the key distinctions from other modalities is that the ascending sign, which is also known as the rising sign, is one of the most important points in the whole chart along with the sun sign.
Which brings me to my next question, which is in the birth chart, according to evolutionary astrology, which planets are the most significant and why?
All good astrologers, regardless of, there are many modalities of astrology, but they'll all start with the sun, the moon, and the rising sign and what that represents in a chart. And those are still good places to start. In evolutionary astrology, when a client comes to see me or an evolutionary astrologer, we'll also talk a lot about Pluto, which in our modern world, people kind of laugh at Pluto and say, oh, is that even a planet anymore? But in an evolutionary astrology, it is the most powerful force of transformation. So I look at a client's chart and I see where Pluto is, the house of the zodiac, the sign of the zodiac. And I know if we imagine that someone has lived 1,000 lifetimes, when I look at Pluto in a chart, I see the lesson that they've been working to transform for 50 or 100 lifetimes in a row, which can give a lot of context to some of the things that we feel that we struggle with. So Pluto is a big one. The planet Uranus is also a big one because it's through evolutionary astrology, Uranus tells us where we want to be set free. So there can often be a link to unresolved past lifetime trauma with Uranus that can often show up in this lifetime. But Uranus provides a valuable clue about what in this lifetime we're ready to be free of, whether that's money worries or, relationship woes or career struggles. We all have an area of life where Uranus is present in our chart, and it says, set yourself free, which is just a beautiful message. Who doesn't want to be free? And then the south node of the moon, which if anyone knows their chart, it's a little upside down horseshoe symbol in the chart. And that's a powerful indicator of past life energies that we've brought into this lifetime. And then, Catherine, I know you know about Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde. Any retrograde planets in the birth chart in evolutionary astrology say, okay, this is an area of life where you're having a do-over, and how can you do it differently? So there are many wonderful apps out there today where you can pull up your chart. You can pull up free charts online at astro.com. But if you're new to astrology, the right astrologer can really help you say, these are the most important things to look at, including those retrograde planets.
Now, what can be learned about past life gifts and lessons through evolutionary astrology?
This is a wonderful gift of evolutionary astrology, of seeing that we all have the experience of knowing we're naturally good at something. Some people are naturally good with other people. Some people show up to this lifetime being naturally creative, wonderful artists, singers, writers, service people, healers. And again, to look at the south node of the moon, which is a very specific point in a person's astrology chart, there are often planets sitting right beside that south node of the moon. So if I see a planet sitting right there, if it's Chiron, which is the planet of healing and the healer, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person has come in with tremendous past life healing gifts to offer to others in this lifetime. But with Chiron there, it always starts with healing themselves. And if someone knows their chart, they can say, okay, I have the south node of the moon in Capricorn, in the 10th house. I've probably been a great leader in other lifetimes. I've probably lived many recent lifetimes as a strong father figure or a voice of authority. And how can I carry that forward into this lifetime responsibly? So it starts with the south node of the moon, but just like any topic in astrology, it's you pull the thread and there's an energy trail that you can follow throughout the chart.
Fascinating. Now, I know astrologers talk about the rising sign. What is our rising sign, and why is it especially important in evolutionary astrology?
The rising sign, which, as you noted, is also known as the ascendant or the ascending sign, is the sign of the zodiac that's on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born. So if you can orient yourself wherever you live, wherever you're listening, to where the sun rises in your town, city, state, country, and at the moment that you were born, there was a certain sign of the zodiac at that point in the sky. And that sign of the zodiac and that degree of the zodiac is your rising sign and rising degree. In modern astrology and what I like to call internet astrology, astrologers talk about the rising sign being your personality. Oh, you're a Libra rising. You're very harmonious. You're very peaceful. You're good with other people. And that's all true. But in evolutionary astrology, as we've touched on a little bit, the rising sign is your biggest lesson for this incarnation. So when I look at the rising sign through evolutionary astrology, I can say to someone, this is what you are here to learn in this lifetime, which is so powerful to be able to share. And it allows people to be very seen, because we always get the rising sign. We always get the lesson we need the most that's unique to us. And so there's much more of a focus around the rising sign than in traditional astrology when it's just the personality. So for your listeners who have Aries rising, Taurus rising, Aquarius rising, Pisces rising, they are really moving through some major life changes right now because some of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, are traveling in those 4 signs that I mentioned.
Okay, now we're all wanting to learn more about evolutionary astrology from professional astrologer Whitney Howard. And let's take a break right now and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors. We'll be right back here at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. So Whitney Howard, professional astrologer. Many of us have heard about astrology on the internet or magazines, and you can read your little report according to the magazines for the month. How can a novice use astrology more effectively to guide our lives?
Astrology is complex, and so many people these days, especially younger people, but not just younger people, really have the astrology bug. And one wonderful modern tool are all of the apps that have been developed for the iPhone, for Android, specifically focused around your personal astrology. And that's a wonderful jumping off point. There's an app, CoStar. Many people enjoy the app, The Pattern. There's a professional astrology app that's good for novices still to learn called Time Passages. So that's a wonderful place to start. And then Sun, Moon, Rising, as we've talked about, which are known as the big 3 in your personal chart, understanding this, where the sun is, where the moon is, where your rising sign is. And then also understanding that at certain points in every human's life, we all go through a similar astrological event. My chart is totally different from your chart, Catherine. Even identical twins have slightly different astrology charts, slightly different, but at certain ages, for example, age 29, 30, age 42 to 44, age 49 to 50, age 58 to 60, all humans go through similar astrological events. So as one example, we tend to joke that people in their early 40s go through a midlife crisis. And sometimes it's more than a joke, but astrologically, that's always correlated with something called a Uranus opposition. So if you're listening to this and you're at one of those age brackets that I mentioned, a really helpful jumping off point can be to research the Saturn return or the Uranus opposition and understand so many times when we're moving through something big in our lives, we feel like we're doing it all alone. But astrologically, there are many millions of people moving through the same experience as us. And so there are wonderful books, wonderful websites. YouTube is a valuable resource for diving in and learning more. And for people that say astrology is too complicated, I would say find a respected, trustworthy astrologer, because the right astrologer will translate your chart for you in a way that feels like a retelling of your life story versus a bunch of planets and technical jargon.
Yes. Now you mentioned a Saturn return and then a Uranus opposition, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what exactly is a Saturn return and what age or ages does it tend to occur?
Great question. We have 2 Saturn returns in our life, and the first is around age 29, and the second is around age 58. And it's fair to say that we feel the effects of those Saturn returns from 28 to 30 and 58 to 60. So Saturn return is when Saturn in the sky comes back to its location where it was at the moment you were born. And it's a crossroads. So whenever I have young people come to see me, 20, 21, 22, they'll say, I don't know my purpose. I say, you don't need, astrologically, you don't become an adult till your first Saturn return. So in terms of how the cosmos views our lives, we don't become an adult until that first Saturn return. So it's an important crossroads of growing up. Sometimes people get married, have children, have a big move, have a big life change. And that's what the first Saturn return is all about, ushering a human into adulthood. The second Saturn return around 58, 59, 60 is another check-in that says, okay, you are in the second half of your life. Are you living in accordance with your own inner teacher's desire for your life? What's in alignment with who you are? What needs to shift? And the universe is very brilliant this way. It tends to, depending on an individual Saturn in their birth chart, it tends to align with certain circumstances, whether it's retirement or whether it's children leaving the home or whether it's a change in marital circumstances or work circumstances. It's nothing to fear, but it's a beautiful way of saying, how can you enter the second half of your life being in alignment with your truest nature?
Beautiful explanation. Now, what is a Uranus opposition, and what age or ages does that occur?
The Uranus, I love to joke that the Uranus opposition is known on the streets as a midlife crisis. And it happens around 42 to 44. And the planet Uranus is about freedom. So if we imagine that when we're born with a tiny little backpack, and in there we put every memory we've had, every wonderful moment, every heartbreaking moment, every accomplishment, every failure. By the time we get to our early 40s, we're carrying a lot with us. And you know this as an intuitive healer. We carry so much with us that we have no idea we carry. And the Uranus opposition is a checking in that says, how can you be free of things that you don't need to carry forward for the next 42 to 44 years? So again, it can be marked by a major career change, a major change in relationship status, a spiritual awakening, whatever that may mean to someone listening. It is a profound time of personal creativity. So I always encourage people through their Uranus opposition, even if they're not artists, to find a creative outlet, whether it's cooking, gardening, writing, singing, performing, and let that liberating energy flow through creativity. After the Uranus opposition, the reason it's often a midlife crisis is because people resist the changes of their soul. They say, I hate this job, I'm burnt out on it, or I'm unhappy in this relationship, but I'm safe here, so I'm going to stay here. And so, as you know, Catherine, crisis happens when we don't flow with the changes that our soul desires for us. So the Uranus opposition says, let's be free. And what better message is that?
And does the second Uranus opposition then happen in our 80s? Is that when it happens?
That's right. So for folks still living at that time of life and into the late 80s, they have a second Uranus opposition.
Now, in traditional astrology, most of the planets are considered masculine except the moon and Venus. How does evolutionary astrology balance out the yin and yang aspects of individuals regardless of gender?
I love talking about this topic through the lens of evolutionary astrology. In school, we study our solar system, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all the way out through Pluto. And in astrology, all of the planets are considered masculine, assertive, yang, except the moon and Venus. So it creates a very imbalanced picture when I, to sit with clients who are identify as all genders, and to not give yang advice to yin humans. There are a school of study called the asteroid goddesses in evolutionary astrology, which are in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And they are not exclusive to evolutionary astrology, but evolutionary astrologers tend to incorporate them more. So for example, there's the asteroid goddess Hygeia, and they are all yin. They are all feminine receptive energies. The asteroid goddess Hygeia is about health and healing. So in a birth chart, you can see where this person has health or healing themes in their lifetime. Very illuminating to look at that asteroid goddess. You could see Ceres, the mother, the nurturer, also areas where we might be processing things like grief or healing. There's Juno, the goddess of marriage. So there's a whole panoply of these asteroid goddesses, and incorporating them into evolutionary astrology creates a very balanced yin and yang picture within a chart, regardless of the gender identification of the client.
Now, the asteroid goddesses, are these planets? Are these stars? What actually are they?
Asteroids.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're actually asteroids. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so here we are at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. And when people come to me for medical intuitive readings, they may be coming for literally every aspect of healing. What aspect of healing does evolutionary astrology most effectively address?
That's a wonderful question. I work with the chart as a map, or as a treasure map, as a blueprint for the soul's intention. So I would not necessarily say that evolutionary astrology meets one specific type of healing theme. It depends on the nature of the person's chart, because what they're healing, what we're healing is all different, as you know. And so the advanced preparation with the chart, and then also being in session with a person and feeling their energy and feeling the psychic connection between the two of you, starts to hone in on what the right healing theme is. There is a lot of work through the lens of evolutionary astrology around trauma in this lifetime and others, but it is not exclusively a modality focused around healing trauma.
Okay. Now, in my 10th book, Reading the Soul, I talk in detail, of course, because it's a book, about when I am doing a medical intuitive reading and I read what's happening at the soul level, what's going on. So, for example, where are you in your soul process? Are you unconscious, which means you're here, but you don't really know why? Are you awakening, which is where you're waking up to the fact that you are a soul and you have a purpose? Are you awakened, which means you know you're a soul and you know why you're here? What are the karmas that you're here to address in this lifetime? What soul medicine works best for you? How does your soul communicate with you? Because there's different kinds of intuition that works for different people. And then also clearing wounded spirit, because many of us have had wounds that are not purely emotional, but that go all the way to the level of the soul. So those are some of the things that I personally look at when I'm looking at a human being at the soul level. Mm-hmm. So evolutionary astrology, how does that help us have a greater understanding of what's happening to us at the soul level?
Yes, there are valuable clues in the chart about the family of origin. And, our birth mother is our first experience into this lifetime. And so helping connect themes around the family of origin is often something that I focus on in a session, to say, oh, I see that there's a father wound here, or I see that you had a very close relationship with your mother. Excuse me, tell me about that. And then also looking at the past life, unresolved wounds that were brought into this lifetime, whether it's a physical, emotional, or spiritual malady that's present in the chart, and saying, this is the lifetime where you intended to resolve it. And using the astrology chart as a tool to counsel individuals on what the path is forward for them. And then also the perception that we have in life sometimes of feeling stuck. I feel stuck. I feel stuck in this area of my life. I feel stuck in all areas of my life. I feel, in a cycle of depression or uncertainty. Using the chart as a tool to help people become unstuck. And there are certain points in the chart that say, hey, this is your destiny, or hey, at a crossroads, go right here, or helping people, Catherine, to even trust themselves at a deeper level. So many people will say, I don't trust myself. And that's present in the chart. Trust is a Scorpio issue. So we all have Scorpio in our chart. We all have the 8th house in our chart, which is also about trust. And so giving people the tools and suggestions based on their personal astrology to trust themselves is a transformational experience for many people.
Wonderful information. And with that, let's take another moment to listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. And we'll be right back with evolutionary astrologer Whitney Howard. So Whitney Howard, as you know, many people tend to have certain health struggles. So for example, some people may struggle with their blood sugar, or other people may struggle with their weight, or other people may struggle with money, or with relationships, or with heart disease, or with back pain. What healing themes are evident in a birth chart through the lens of evolutionary astrology?
Well, we touched on this a little bit in our conversation right before the break. There are 12 houses in astrology, and so the healing themes can show up in any of those 12 aspects of life. So it could range from an individual's sense of self and how that informs how they experience the world, money, self-worth, how an individual communicates or thinks, which may include anxiety or depression, relationships with siblings or extended family, topics around the family of origin, children, a person's inner child, as you mentioned, their physical health, their emotional health, marriage and relationships, intimacy, self-trust, feeling connected to one's intuition, and conditioning around religion or spirituality the individual may have been raised in, many themes around work and career, trauma, and then also past life karma that shows up in this lifetime without a clear indicator of where it's come from. For example, an inexplainable phobia around something that would be in the 12th house in the chart. And so there may not be a direct, someone would say, I don't know why I'm afraid of heights. I've never been afraid of heights, but I have this paralyzing fear. And if it's in the 12th house, it's something that needs to be resolved from past lives. So really any area, any aspect of life as a human being could be a healing theme for a person. And it all comes down to what's in the chart.
Now, Whitney Howard, evolutionary astrologer, can you share some resources for people wanting to learn more about evolutionary astrology?
Of course, I made a little list because I wanted to hit all the the best of in my assessment. There's a man named William Meader, William, William, Meader, Meader, wonderful astrologer. His videos on YouTube are quite good as an intro point. Alice Bailey, the writings of Alice Bailey and Jeffrey Wolf Green are both esoteric astrologers, evolutionary astrologers. Mark Jones, there are a couple of astrologers named Mark Jones, but this is M-A-R-K Jones, markjonesastrology.com. He's a wonderful, living, practicing, brilliant evolutionary astrologer. He does courses. He's written a wonderful book called Healing the Soul. And then we spoke about the asteroid goddesses. The astrologer Demetra George, D-E-M-E-T-R-A, Demetra George, she is a living astrologer, not evolutionary, but she has done the most work around the asteroid goddesses. So for someone listening who felt very pulled into that part of our conversation, that's an excellent book. And then finding an evolutionary astrologer who's able to give you a session is another wonderful tool.
Great information. Now, Whitney Howard, you're like me in that you work with people every day. And when you work with people every day, you see common themes. Like right now, people seem to be struggling with this or that. When you listen to your clients right now, what healing themes do you see people struggling with the most at this time?
That is a wonderful question. It tends to differ generationally. It tends to differ generationally. So I would say one of the major themes my younger clients tend to bring into sessions is anxiety. Lots of anxiety, and helping them transform their relationship with anxiety as something that's meant to be pushed away, strong-armed away at all costs. Like, how can I keep this at bay? Which, as you know, Catherine, only gives it more power to saying, what if anxiety is a messenger? And what if there's a message there that something's out of alignment? How can we lean into what that message is? Some clients, I would say the clients that I work with that are parents of younger children or even teenagers are in a place in life where they're saying, what's my purpose? And I would say, that's a big healing theme that I do hear a lot, is people coming in and saying, what's my purpose? And then I would say older clients, many of them are looking to make peace with their past.
Okay, and by older, younger, can you give us some age range?
Well, I don't want to be distinct about it, but I'm saying that the anxiety set to generalize, not exclusively, I'd say is under 30. And then I would say the folks coming in and with a lot of interest around their purpose, how do I find my purpose, is 30s. And then I would say 40s, 50s are coming in and saying, I feel like I've been disconnected from my purpose, or I feel like I've lost my vitality, women going through menopause and the impact that can have on the psyche while the body's going through the changes. And then I would say, older is a state of mind to me, but I'm
63. I'll be 64 next month. So that's why I'm asking, what's older?
The clients that come to see me in their 70s and 80s, many of them are not looking to make huge changes in their lives, but they are sitting with things from their childhood that they are still struggling to find peace with. And they really come in with an intention of letting go of resentment or loving themselves in spite of messaging at a very young age that they were not lovable. A generation that did not have the tools that today's 20-year-olds have for self-actualization and the right language around healing and recognizing that they're lovable because they exist. The 70s and 80s folks are a generation of Saturn and Pluto and Leo, which is a generation of folks with depression era parents who said, the child's here to work and help support the family. And there just was not to say that there were no loving parents in those times, because that's not accurate, but it was just a very different time. And so I see many clients in their 70s and 80s who are trying to claim a sense of lovability, knowing that they are loved and lovable for the first time in their lives.
Beautiful. Now, you mentioned self-actualization. In your view, Whitney Howard, what is self-actualization and how can evolutionary astrology help us accomplish that?
Self-actualization I view through my work as being on the soul's intended path for this lifetime. And most of us get far into our lives before we ever have a clue what that might be. And many people go their whole lives without feeling in touch with the idea of their soul at all. And that's also fine. No judgment. But in astrology, I talked a little bit about the south node of the moon, which if you're looking at a chart, it looks like an upside down horseshoe, and that's past life energies, our comfort zone. There's also the north node, which visually looks like a right side up horseshoe. And the north node of the moon in the chart is our destiny point. Mm-hmm. And so it's a point that I always highlight for people in sessions to say, this is where your soul wanted you to evolve. And sometimes people say, oh, that's exactly where I want to be going. How it's amazing that it's there. Or people say, oh man, I'm really not even close to being there. How can I get there? And so self-actualization is the awareness. It does not require a belief in reincarnation for evolutionary astrology to resonate, but just the idea that your life here has purpose and that you are a part of something much bigger. And how can you feel like you're moving through life from a place of power versus powerlessness? Or how can you look at the experiences of your life as things that help to grow and shape you, and then find fulfillment in the idea that you are that it's not an accident. I just don't believe it. I don't believe in coincidence through the lens of astrology or through the brilliance of the cosmos, helping people understand that they have purpose. And though it may not be always clear cut, it's present, and helping them find that and feel in flow with that.
How can evolutionary astrology help us find or discover our life purpose?
I always start with the North Node, that it is the North Star, it is the destiny point in the chart, and it's different for everyone. So if you're an at-home student of astrology and you have your chart, you would look at where the North Node of the moon is, what sign of the zodiac it's in, what house of the zodiac it's in, combine the meanings of that house and that sign, and then also look at how it connects into other planets in your chart. And again, this is something that a professional astrologer can really help you with, but you could find your way there if you have a basic understanding of the map of your chart.
So Whitney Howard, I know that you haven't always been an astrologer yourself professionally. How has evolutionary astrology helped you personally?
Thank you for asking that. I spent the first 20 years of my career in the corporate world in New York City, working in tech and digital media. No awareness about my astrological chart. And then I had several years in my life where I was going through major life changes, one after the other. And they were so big that they were impossible to look away. And it was a period in my life of very concentrated and disruptive change. And I started to seek purpose in it all, an explanation, a blueprint. And I found an astrologer that became a wonderful mentor to me. And Deb McBride, she now lives in Costa Rica. And she was not an evolutionary astrologer, but when she took me through my chart for the first time, it was a life-changing experience. And so I've always been a nerd and a math nerd. And so I got the astrology bug and began studying and went through every nook and cranny of my astrology chart until I understood it. The beauty of your birth chart, Catherine, is that you and I could spend 72 hours talking about the one chart because there's so much information there. And so I got intuitively pulled into the modality of evolutionary astrology through the work of Mark Jones, who I mentioned. And I just knew, in the way that we know when something's right for us, I knew that when I found it, it was the right modality for me. So in my own life, it helped me discover my purpose, including my work in this season of my life as an astrologer. And it's also helped me tremendously with healing my own past and transforming my relationship with my own past. I'm a Scorpio rising, so that spiritual lesson of transforming my own shadow in a way that my struggles have become the essence of my strength. And I fully credit the brilliance of the cosmos and the modality of astrology and evolutionary astrology for support and healing on that path.
So Whitney Howard, evolutionary astrologer, any final thoughts for our audience?
2023 is an interesting year, a big year, astrologically speaking. We talked about Pluto and how it's one of the most important planets in evolutionary astrology. Pluto will change signs of the zodiac in March of 2023 from Capricorn to Aquarius, and Pluto will stay in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And then also in March, Saturn will change signs from Aquarius to Pisces, and Saturn will stay there for the next 3 years. So humanity at large is in the middle of a major shift. Pluto's been in Capricorn for a decade and a half. So the rumblings that we're all feeling, whether it's in our personal life or in the world at large, there are astrological correlations to that. So if you've ever been called to astrology, it can be a wonderful time to have your chart read, especially for the first time. But 2023 promises to be an interesting, exciting year around the planet.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Whitney Howard, evolutionary astrologer. And you can find out more about Whitney Howard and her wonderful work at starlandalchemy.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.